Welcome to Kit Katastrophe. My name is Kit, and today we'll be taking a look at Transformers Siege Deluxe Class SPINISTER. This figure came out in 2019 as part of Wave 5 of the Deluxe assortment, and this review was requested by Jason Star Prime. SPINISTER, much like his name suggests, turns into a helicopter, and already I have problems with this figure. To address the elephant in the room, no, it's not the color scheme. The dark blue and hot pink are so quintessentially late 80s to early 90s, and are pretty much the only appeal SPINISTER has at all, so I can't and won't take issue with it. What I will take issue with are the proportions. This helicopter mode is sloppy, misshapen, and capital U ugly. For starters, there are the arms just hanging out on the sides, trying to pretend you can't see them. They're also purple, a color which is found nowhere else on this figure, save for an accessory. I would have rather seen these arms cast in pink to match the rest of the body, or dark blue to make the cockpit flow better into the rest of the helicopter. I mean, there is that patch of blue paint preceding the rotor, but it's pretty minimal. The wonderfully detailed cockpit is flanked by feet. I know they're supposed to be winglets, but they're so obviously shoe-shaped that it's distracting. They're way too big, way too thick for what they're supposed to represent. And then we get to the most glaring issue of all. The dummy second cockpit hanging beneath the main body of this helicopter. If there's one thing that's become my pet peeve lately, it's faux parts, and SPINISTER just takes the whole fucking cake and bakes a new one for good measure. This is completely, unforgivably lazy, and pretty much ruins this helicopter mode from every angle that isn't top-down or front-facing. And the worst part is that there is such a simple solution to all this, which I'll get into when we go to robot mode. As a little consolation prize, we get retractable landing gear on the real cockpit. Also, the main and coaxial rotors spin freely. They're cast in a gray plastic that comes across as having a slightly lavender tinge since it's surrounded by all that purple and pink. Despite the laziness of the arms, SPINISTER's transformation exhibits an uncommon amount of complexity for a mainline Transformers figure, at least in the context of Siege and Earthrise. The way the legs unfurl themselves relies on a multitude of tight swivels and some solid locking points. Even the waist swivel gets in on the action, performing that most rare of moves, the 90-degree waist swivel. I can't remember any other figures that pull that trick. The body of the helicopter does a little tuck and roll into the torso, and I adore how the fin on top of the helicopter's tail locks SPINISTER's rotors in, assuring that they stay put in robot mode while being able to spin freely in vehicle mode. It's so simple, yet so substantial. SPINISTER's robot mode is pretty good. It's definitely very clean, with the exception of that upright tail rotor. He's very lithe and spindly, which is somewhat fitting considering SPINISTER is the tallest deluxe in the Siege toy line. SPINISTER also has that well-known Siege conceit of having some great sculpted detail, which subscribes to my favorite form of G1 accuracy, turning stickers into sculpted and painted detail. Pretty much all of SPINISTER's torso sculpt is based on one sticker or another from his original figure, and they're all given some healthy amounts of paint to make them pop. The vents on his shoulders are similarly based on stickers, but aren't painted. If I actually knew how to customize, I'd probably fill them in with black or something. The head sculpt also takes what was given in G1 and runs off with it and expands upon it. The original SPINISTER head sculpt was something of a gumdrop, but on this figure it's a more dignified helmet. I really love his really deep-set, piercing yellow eyes. Moving below the belt, we come back to my major gripe. See, the original SPINISTER figure formed both legs from a singular cockpit, and that would have definitely not been enough to form both legs on this figure, and the original box art showed SPINISTER having two cockpit legs, so they just gave him another fucking cockpit. This shit is why I hate G1ers, by the way. See, if they just sculpted the leg to look like the underside of a helicopter while keeping it blue, I'd say it would be both faithful to the original design and not look like shit in vehicle mode. But no, these days if anything isn't 1000% G1 accurate, someone throws a tantrum. Sure, the robot mode looks fine, but this is just... it really drags the figure down in my eyes. Much like SPINISTER's original figure, he comes with two weapons. No, they're not target masters, thank God. That means these weapons can actually look good and practical. But if you really need Spinister's Target Masters, Daddy Warden over at Hasbro made them for you. Each sold separately. I already covered one of them in my Siege Skywarp review, go watch that, though I couldn't give two shits whether it was G1 accurate or not. I prefer the weapons that Spinister comes with already. The first is the NFM Dual Fusion Cannon, which is a blue, double-barreled cannon. And the second is the Spin Blast Particle Beam Cannon, which is a purple pair of miniguns. Just like the original Hair Splitter and Singe Target Master figures, the two weapons can stack on top of each other to form a stack of weapons. It's fine.
Spinister's head is on a ball joint, and it's a really nice ball joint. It doesn't have too much range, but it can look left and right, though sometimes his helmet does get caught on this tail piece from the helicopter mode. That is unfortunate. The ball joint is on a plate that allows Spinister to look downwards some. It doesn't really allow him to look up, so looking up is not something Spinister can do. His arms rotate 360 degrees forward and backwards, and they can go more than 180 degrees outwards, or rather, they can have a greater than 180 degree arc. The biceps rotate 360 degrees on a mushroom joint. The elbows have a double bend due to transformation, and that means they can bend just about 180 degrees. And finally, the wrists swivel, though the wrist swivel is very tight compared to the rest of Spinister's joints. He has a waist swivel that can go 360 degrees and is unimpeded by anything. You'd think that the backpack would get in the way, but no, look at that. Very clean. Spinister's legs can go forward and backwards in a roughly 180 degree arc. They can also go outwards all the way. That is a very nice split. And his thighs swivel 360 degrees, his knees bend just over 90 degrees, which is very good, and if you open up these hatches, they can bend a little more, but that also means they have to go outwards, or else these hatches bang into his pelvis. Finally, his feet allow an ankle tilt on both feet, even though they transform a little differently, and they can point. They can't really go forward too much because the design of his lower legs gets in the way, but they can go downwards for floating poses or kicks or whatever. So Spinister has a lot of joints compared to your typical Siege figure, and that means he can take more poses than your typical Siege figure, which is very impressive.
Call me a contrarian, but I'm giving this figure such a hard time because it's so popular. I keep seeing this figure touted as best deluxe of the line and stuff like that, and I don't think he deserves it. At all. That honor naturally goes to Brunt, but I still think even the likes of Impactor and Hound are better than Spinister. Spinister has an okay-looking robot mode, a neat and unorthodox transformation, and as much articulation as you could reasonably expect from a figure this price point. But those come at the cost of a shitty vehicle mode that is only as bad as it is from chasing after that off-praised G1 with knees design ethic instead of daring to do anything new and worthwhile. Naturally, all of this will become meaningless whenever I get around to reviewing Earthrise Starscream, since I love that figure, and of course that makes me a huge hypocrite. I'll just end it with this. Stop being okay with faux parts, please. With that, I'll still gladly give Spinister the rank of astounding. If you liked this video, then please subscribe to see more reviews like this in the future, and feel free to leave a comment to suggest topics for future reviews. Up next, this show takes one final look at a mold that really outgrew its welcome, and I do mean final. This has been Katastrophe. Transform and roll out.